you talked about Milwaukee
Right.
being in the state of Wisconsin being one of the most segregated
Hmm.
state of Wisconsin in the entire nation, and so Milwaukee, yeah, I've lived there my entire life.
Right.
So how much is uh, racism predicated on economics?
It's everything. Everything. I mean, um, racism is used as it has its history in classism because with racism, you can actually literally see the people and divide them by what kind of racial group you see they are from. I mean, I can't hide myself as a dark skinned black woman. I can't hide
Right.
myself, to in any other, I can't pass, I can't do anything like that. So when people see me, oh, she's a black woman. Or sometimes I remember when I used to do customer service on the phone, people didn't realize what I look like. And then
Right.
when they see me, they're kind of surprised. Oh, this is a black woman. I'm like, what, would they expect that I sound white or something? But, and I can always see their reaction. So everything is predicated on race. Just all you have to do is look at the history of housing, the housing marches. That's all about money and keeping so-called neighborhoods a certain way, not renting, not selling your homes. I know Eric, you live in Tulsa. I mean, there's
Oh,
plenty
Tulsa.
of uh, mortgages that still have. You can find. I don't know about yours, but you can find some. I know people personally who still have talking about the actual covenant, the housing covenant language of who you can't sell your home to. So this is about economics. We're talking about I-43. So if we were to take a look at two zip codes, 53217, and then we look at 53206, there is a 11-year difference in living. The death
You mean
so
death rate?
yeah, yeah. So
Right.
so the black folks that's living in 5306 will die 11 years earlier than the people who live in 53217, who are predominantly, we know, white. And so when we talk about this is all about economics. So if we're talking about the economic gap between black and white in Milwaukee County, it's so
That
stark.
that statistic you just quoted is staggering.
Yes.
11-year life expectancy difference in America, in the
Yeah.
wealthiest nation on earth.
Within the same county.
Within the
Yeah.
same, so I want people to really see this, so if not everybody is aware of where this is at. This is 11 miles. This is like right off of 43. So it's a few minutes difference. Just go straight down. So if you were to take Brown Deer and Port Washington Road, so that's Bayside, and then if you look at 53206, that begins, I believe, at Center Street or around Center, Locust, around in that
Right.
area. Eh, How could it be that just one highway driving your car, there is such a stark difference in life expectancy? So you have the most expensive zip code in the state,
Bayside.
with Bayside, which includes River Hills. So River
Yeah.
Hills is the most expensive.
Mequon.
Not Mike, not
Not
Mac,
quite Mequon.
not
Okay.
quite Mequon. So, but it's Bayside, Fox Point. So think of the
Oh, yes.
North Shore, the North Shore, and then you look at where 53206 is, and then and 53206, there's no banks, there's a food deserts, there's a healthcare desert there. I mean, I could keep naming
So,
things.
so I have to say that I grew up in 53206.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And when I grew up in 53206 had one of the highest standards of living for black people
right,
in the nation. It was
right,
because we were an industrial metropolis. And
right,
so people who didn't even have high school diplomas could live a middle class lifestyle, buy homes, live the American dream, and they were able to own businesses. Those
right,
things existed when I was a boy,
right,
or a young man, not a boy, but a young man. And so I saw that slide from a
Hmm.
middle class reality where most of those homes in 53206 were owner occupied,
Right.
right, to where it is now. Eric,
Yes.
let me. So I'll come back to you in a second. This is clearly a conversation. It's Black History Month.
Right.
If ever there was a time to have this conversation
Yeah.
on the Earl Ingram Show and on civic media, it is now. And I thank you and welcome you guys to coming on to have this discussion because many people in this listening audience don't even get to see a black person uh, in their daily travels because of Wisconsin being one of the most segregated in the entire nation. So it's a great conversation. I'm glad to have you on. Red Racism Milwaukee, Lisa Jones, co-chair, and Eric Fanning are here. Our phone lines are open at 855-752-4842. We're going to delve even deeper. We're going to talk about today and not just what took place in the civil rights struggle, but what's taking place today in our nation.
I was resting at the park, minding my own business as I kick up the trouble zone.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. You can text us at that same number. My guest is Rid Racism MKE, Miss Lisa Jones. She's the co-chair, and Eric Fanning. Before we went to break, Lisa was talking about uh, the fact that the life expectancy in Milwaukee inside of what's the
11
highway?
miles.
It's
Ele-
43. It's 43.
43.
43.
Well, you repeat it.
So the life expectancy, there's 11-year difference in life expectancy from one zip code to the other. So 53217, which is the North Shore, which includes Whitefish Bay, Glendale, Bayside, Fox Point. So that's the kind of the North Shore. Then when you drive down 43, go about maybe 10 miles. And when you're hitting around Locust Street off of I-43, then you're looking at the life expectancy drastically drops. And again, that particular zip code 53206 of what it was, I heard you talk about when you were a young man in that community, it is a shell of been stripped
Right.
bare of what it is. And let me just and I'm gonna just piggyback just a little bit also too on the 53206. When I worked for another organization, did doors. I knocked on almost every single door in 53206 back in 2017, 2018. And it was stark to a number of them at that time were seniors. I don't know if that's changed or if they've become rental homes or who knows what has happened now. But um, so a number of those seniors worked at A.O. Smith.
Yeah.
They bought homes around A.O. Smith, and
My dad was one.
so yeah.
Right.
So and it was very stark to see the seniors, and some of those seniors in their retirement years were having a hard time. Even if we assume that they have good retirements, I think that that's a big assumption considering what has happened over the years. But they were having a hard time upkeeping the just their house, and making sure you have a working porch. I'm just saying, just the upkeep of what it is to be a homeowner.
Well, many of them have died out.
Yes.
And so Eric, you live in Wauwatosa. Wauwatosa is safe to say, a strong middle class community economically, very strong middle class community. You were talking about, a covenant. Let's talk about what that is.
Yeah, there's Lisa mentioned it earlier that there are covenants on a lot of properties and a lot of
So
neighborhoods.
what is a covenant?
It's basically a document that when they create the neighborhood, they put it in as basically rules like an HOA of today, but when they designed them, it was and the odd part is our neighborhood. This is Sheridan Lawns, which is well known in our area as a neighborhood, and it's basically Highway 100 and Burleigh is kind of it, but when they created these documents, it was basically to make sure that only people that they wanted to be moving and purchasing these homes were moving into these neighborhoods. And our documents specifically, or I'll round about the language, said whites only. That's literally what it said. I believe other ones would say like specifically groups that weren't allowed. Ours said whites only. And like Lisa had said before, especially back in this is like the 1920s, that's identifiable. Whites are identifiable in a sense to most people. And so it's been on the record. They haven't been enforced for obviously decades, but they still exist in a lot of neighborhoods in Milwaukee County and in the country. Reggie Jackson's actually working on that right now, is to repudiate those wherever he can find them.
So James says the 2020 summer Black Lives Matter riots that burned down the cities and ended up killing many people demonstrates how little racism there is in America, because nobody has to pay to replace the buildings, and no one went to jail because of the crimes that were committed. I would say to you, James, um, you know, that's blown out of proportion with the property damage that was done. You know, I don't know how you can even fix your mouth to say that when we all saw what took place in Washington D.C. on January 6th.
Right.
Yeah.
It is absolutely outlandish that you and others would try to use that as a rationale for why racism still exists in this country.
Well, and if we talk about January 6th, just what the person just said, thinking about there have been 1,500 people just automatically just let go, and one of those, which is the most egregious, got 20 years, and drug dealing and things like that. But yet he's a white male. So if you want to see how racism really works to keep the privilege, all you have to do is look at January 6th. It's a poster child for that.
So 855-752-4842 is the number. It's a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. I'm joined by Racism's own MKE, Red Racism MKE's own Lisa Jones. She's the co-chair, and Eric Fanning. We're going to broaden the conversation. Our phone line's open as always at 855-752-4842. We're going to talk a little bit about the dismantling of DEI and the dismantling of affirmative action.
Milwaukee's own speech.
Oh yes.
Hi, Mom.
choice of colors. Which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night, which would you prefer to be right? How long have you hated your white teacher? Who told you you love your black preacher? Do you respect your brother's woman friend? And share with black folks not of kin? People must prove to the people a better day is coming for you and for me. With just a little bit more education and love for our nation would make a better society.
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. I'm joined by Red Racism MKE, Mr. Eric Fanning, and Lisa Jones. Eric, there were some things you wanted to say.
Yeah, I believe that your text that you read off earlier was talking about how racism doesn't exist and there's evidence for this. And I'd like to kind of counter that by saying, I believe it was Wednesday last week, Brookfield East and Wauwatosa East were playing a girls' basketball game. And there was a bench player tried to come in for Brookfield or Wauwatosa East, and there was a complaint about this young girl's, I'll say girl, this girl's hair.
Right.
Too long. Your hair's too long. And it was a black girl. And I don't know exactly where the source of the complaint was, but they even got to a point where they offered to wrap it or put it in a bun and was still denied. I kind of personally, after hearing about this, called for the Tosa East coach could have and should have forfeited the game at that point to protect their players. I don't really have much more opinion than that. I don't know exactly how it's all played out in the last few days. But that's a sign that obviously racism, we're not post-racial. It doesn't exist. It's still here and it's still prevalent. And it's a willful ignorance for people to say that it doesn't exist.
Well, there was this misconception that once Barack Obama got elected, racism ended. And it was a misconception then.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a misconception now. And if you just look at all the different things that are transpiring, they've done away with affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
They're working to do away with DEI, and because there's this misconception, there's this belief that DEI has benefited black people. And if you look at the list of people who have benefited from affirmative action and DEI, it is white women.
Yes.
That's just a fact. And so many people don't know. The people who are calling for the end to diversity, equity, and inclusion don't understand that includes military veterans, that includes disabled people, that includes a whole cadre of people. And as a matter of fact, black people rank number 8 in the people who benefited from diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's just a fact. But people don't know these things, and so they go by what they hear. And so Donald Trump can come on and say, we got to do away with DEI, and there's a crescendo of people, yeah, do away. It's white men have been discriminated, white people are being discriminated against. Not true, Eric.
I'd like to say, I have a few opinions on that, is that what I see that as, and it's funny how when Lisa was talking about earlier, and then you mentioned what Barack Obama had said about, the idea that we're post-racial, is that it's like reflection to me. Because to me, I think about all the folks that said Barack Obama brought about this racism. And that's people that look like me. All of a sudden, that was the attitude. And to think that we're at that point. I mean, we see evidence of it all the time. And what you're talking about, the DEI, basically it's signaling. I believe everybody, believes what they choose to believe. As long as you don't have some sort of an incapacity that doesn't allow you to think on a pretty basic level, I don't believe anybody is running around really believing these things. I think they choose to believe it, and it's a willful ignorance. And because it fits their narratives and their lifestyle. Like, hey, what's going to work out for me? You know, there's a lot of self-centeredness in racism. It's a lot of it, whether it be your community, your family, or yourself. And it's basically like you kind of go along and you pick and choose. And when you're in a position like mine, you have that privilege to do that. You don't have to like take everything that comes along with you. You can go like, well, I'll accept that. I'll accept that. I have many people that I've known over the years that look and live like me that choose not to vote. How privileged can you be that you don't even feel like you need to put your ballot in there to make a decision to decide who it is, because what you feel is whoever wins, I'm going to be all right. And that's privilege.
All right, let's go to Ron from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Ron. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Hi, Earl. DEI, a short anecdote. I don't remember the woman's name, but about a week ago, I think she's a member of the Republican caucus, was blogging, and she was trying to make some kind of a sarcastic point, and she said, but she made a Freudian slip, I think, because she said we shouldn't have DEI, we should have DI. She didn't spell it out. She had an acronym, but I thought, yeah, that's about it. They just as soon all of us crawl into a hole and die because they don't like us. And by us, I mean everybody who's not them. I don't. It's not even. It's like you said. It's not even just racism. It's economic segregation. It's all these other things. Women, white women, women of color. They have a lot of enemies, and that's how they prosper in a authoritarian mindset.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Ann from Chippewa Falls. Good morning to you, Ann. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
I say Eric is spot on. I'm a veteran. I'm an educator, and I'm a white woman. And white people, in general, think obviously they're entitled because we see it going on in our government. And I just want other people to know that there are white people that see this, they know it, and they're not part of this. I'm not part of this, but it is. It is a very big concern in the military, in our country, in the government. It's called white entitlement. Don't let anybody tell you differently, because that's what it is. And I really appreciate this show. I think people need to educate themselves. And, you know, it's not just entitlement against blacks. It's entitlement against transgender, gay people.
Immigrants.
It's the whole gamut.
Immigrants, disabled people, and even military veterans to some degree. You know, the information is coming out slowly, but the helicopter crash in D.C., there was a woman who was the pilot of the helicopter. And I was listening to some conservative talk, as I do, and they were saying, well, she's a DEI hire. And in essence, if that would have been a white man, this wouldn't have happened. But the ignorance of it is, you know, what's so outlandish, man.
Willful ignorance again. And I had read that the family of the woman won't even release her name because they know that she will be politicized. Her death will be politicized as a woman. Her own family will not release it for that reason, to protect her.
Lisa?
Well, and that's the real sad of where we're at. We are at a point of this white male patriarchy. Let's just call it what it is. And if you go back and look at the times of slavery, who did the most egregious and who did the most plotting to stay in power, we have gone back over 60 years, you know, in an instant. And then we're going to have to really see how far we're going to go back as the government is literally dismantled and torn apart. And one of the things is, we shouldn't be politicizing any veteran that died or anyone that died in that horrible plane crash. There were children, like you said, the woman veteran who was flying. This is not about politics. These are human beings that were loved by their families, that contributed to society. I think about the whole group of skaters, young people, skaters of all different racial ethnic, that died in that crash, and all of the other people that died, and their lives mattered, but yet in the political realm of certain people using it for their own political reasoning, and then you have a president who will say that DEI caused the plane crash, which is utmost ridiculous. And and I feel bad for folks who feel that they don't want to release names and things like that because they don't want to become targets. They don't want their loved ones' graves, things like that. And no one should have to live in a society like that.
Guys, I always say, I've lived to be 70 years of age, and so I lived through the civil rights struggle, and I saw the horror of racism and bigotry. And, a man like Dr. Martin Luther King gave his life, and many others. And as a young man, I watched that horror. And then our nation made some promises that it never lived up to, never kept, as it related to leveling the playing field. And so they were able to dismantle affirmative action without a whimper. And I've said, it was the government that said we're going to create affirmative action predicated on the horrible, horrible reality of what happened in this nation to people of color. People of color didn't say, "Hey, create affirmative action." It was the politicians of that time, based on the fact that people were willing to stand up and bring this before the world. And so they made that decision. It had an impact on bringing blacks, some of us, into the middle class, but not all, and not as great a percentage as one would have you believe. So they did away with it. And the diversity, equity, and inclusion, which again is a misconception that this is something that's been there strictly for blacks. It's none of those things are the truth. We're having this conversation today on the Earl Ingram Show, and I'm happy to have you guys here, and thank you for extending it, for asking to come on, because the truth is just that. And it doesn't matter how many times people say what James said. He's got nothing to back that up with facts. People feel like there's no racism. So when somebody says to me, and I hear it all the time, "Hey, Earl, you need to stop spreading that." And I say to them, if you were in my shoes and you had to experience what I've experienced in my life and still experience, then, this has to change, man. It has to change. It's gotten worse. And so my argument is, and I talk to people, especially in my community, what happens after my generation is gone? The people who knew the history and the people who fought against it, and all those younger people who are forthcoming, and they don't have fighters like the ones we had.
Yeah, I'd like to say that that's a little bit untrue in a sense, and I'll say that only because, like, in 2020, I experienced through working with a lot of young people, those are going to be the leaders of tomorrow.
Hold on, 855-752-4842 is the number. Rid Racism Zone, Lisa Jones, and Eric Fanning on the Earl Ingram Show.
Which would you prefer to be right? And if you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night,
All right, welcome back to Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. You can text us at that same number. Red Racism Milwaukee, Lisa Jones, co-chair, Eric Fanning. Let's go to the phone lines quickly. Marty from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Marty. You say what?
Good morning to you, Earl. Great show as always. Hey, Earl, that 11-year health disparity that you're talking about, that kind of sounds like what Robert from the Lead Coalition talks about Camelot. Camelot is east of that freeway, and then the rest of us, the 400,000 other Milwaukeeans, live west of the freeway. That health disparity is 100% on lack of development, lack of correct health care, bad appointees. You can't have bad leadership for 20 years and expect anything less. But Earl, I know we want to talk about the national and Trump and everything, and the state guys are against Milwaukee. I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of like an airplane. You're supposed to put the mask on yourself before you help others. I don't think we can help anyone else in this country unless Milwaukee is in a strong place. We've lost home rule. We don't have a city hall fighting for home rule for the city of Milwaukee.
Agreed.
And at this moment, Earl, if I just finish up real quick, at this moment, Mayor Johnson on his desk is going to sign legislation to put $30 million, city tax money, MPS money, county money, into the area around.
Hey, Marty. Listen, man. Listen. I'll get with you, and certainly, we're going to have that conversation. There's no question about it. So I'll get with you. I'll leave your number with Calvin. Thank you very much for the call. I think there was something you wanted to say.
I think when we left, I was just talking about how the younger generations, what I experienced a lot since even before 2018, but like in 2018, I remember. I'd moved back to the area in 2016, actually 15. And so kind of started immediately getting engaged, discovered your station at 1510, and kind of got involved with a lot of local folks because I've been away for about a decade. And when 2020 hit and things started happening on the ground, I began marching and being involved in different causes. And I saw a lot of young leaders. And I thought to myself, I remember, I was like, there's a young woman named Mariah that I've worked with a lot. And I was like, this is like today's Angela Davis in a sense. You just see these people coming out and they're not educated, like per se. It's not like they come from colleges and they're going to college, but they're not people that have positions of power or anything. They're just people that found it in their heart, and you can just see the leadership just come out in them. And I believe I still see them today, like in different, movements and activities and fighting for justice and stuff. And you see how now they're growing. They're like in their early 20s. Now they're like mid 20s, and they're going to continue. And those are going to be the people, it's not as it was 2020, at least, was kind of, I'll say, crushed, quicker than say the 60s, but the 60s was a series of failures and successes. So just like that, it's going to continue to ebb and flow. And again, it's weird how I see a lot of this from like my perspective, because that's all I can see it from. And I remember in 2020 and even today, I can feel people that look like me and live like me in a sense, and in the areas I live in and stuff, there's this constant pressure to keep things down. And what you were talking about before, I think, about how they don't want you to bring this up. Why? And I think the word is really, why do you keep making people aware of this, is what they're actually saying. Don't make people aware of this. We want to just keep this the way it works for us. And that's not just all people that look like me.
So let me clarify something. It's certainly not the radio station. The radio station encourages me to have the dialogue and conversations that I have. I know that there are probably people in this audience who aren't very, inclined to hear this kind of conversation.
Can I kind of speak to that? Red Racism has done many book studies over the years. There is a term out there, white fragility. I'm just going to say it, white fragility, that kind of just like what you said of maybe some of the people in your audience that just maybe not, this is hard to hear. This is hard to hear some of the the history, just like when I see Dr. Gates with some of those celebrities, and then they find out that some of their relatives were slave owners. And it's one of those kind of things. They don't know what to do with that, or to understand that the systems have been built. And so the last caller talked about the system of leaders in Milwaukee. But let me just be very clear. The systems that we have were built on white supremacy culture and were meant to benefit a certain group, and they did not look like me. It's not like my ancestors built the systems and structures. And so here's the thing is that we're much more communal than what we think we are. And sometimes, and the way politics is, it tries to make it to be like conformity. And sometimes I think we see that play out. But then also too, we have to remember there are things that the state does to divest. There's things that the federal government does to intentionally divest. And I tell folks, I said, if you want to do something deeper to learn, I would encourage for all your listeners here, if you really want to know the real Dr. King, have you read his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? And have you heard his sermon? You need to do that.
All right, so got to end it there. Thank you guys. We're certainly going to bring you back. It's Black History Month. If ever there was a time to do it, it's now. So we'll bring you guys back certainly in the coming weeks. Up next on the Earl Ingram Show, Casey Washington. He's a young man who has reached national recognition in acting here right out of the bowels of the city of Milwaukee. Next on a Motown edition of the Earl Ingram Show. All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. And I'm honored and privileged to have my next guest on, Mr. Casey Washington, who is a young man who's done some tremendous things in acting out in California. He's appeared on some of the top sitcoms, that over the last 10, 15 years. And so I want to introduce him to you, Mr. Casey Washington. Good morning to you, young man. How you doing?
Good morning, Mr. Ingram. I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Man, you just have this presence about you. Man. So tell us a little bit about Casey Washington.
Born and raised Milwaukee native. Graduated from Madison High School. It's just,
man, I thought they said nothing good could come out of Madison High School.
who said that?
Yeah, it's been.
Who said that?
Well,
They didn't check my record. They didn't check my record.
All right.
Graduated from Madison High School, and then after I left Madison, I moved to Los Angeles to become an actor or pursue my dreams as an actor. And
How old were you at that time?
20, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So had you appeared in shows and things here? What made you feel that you had?
Oh, I can tell you.
pedigree?
Listen, I can tell you the exact moment. So I did a play called "We Are the Drum."
Yeah,
I'm sure you're familiar.
absolutely.
And we were at Eliam Hall. It was opening night at Eliam Hall. We did the show. It was incredible. The energy was incredible. And then at the end of the night, the cast came out the doors, and those doors opened. And when they opened, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's how it started.
For those who don't know, Capita Productions, We Are the Drum, will be kicking off again on February 27th.
Let's go.
I am the MC of Capita Productions, We Are the Drum, but I'm also a member of the board of directors. So when you mention Capita Productions, I'm a little smitten, man.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, it's a great opportunity for young people to get involved in theater, and every year this great show takes place, and it's a prime example of a young man like you who did that, and then was able to see that as an opportunity. Most young blacks don't see that as an opportunity. They don't get exposed to it, right? Capita Production at least offers that.
Yeah. Capita. I mean, I would say back then I was with Eileen
Skarowski, absolutely.
Yeah. And Pat.
Pat Bridges is
Pat
still there.
Bridges.
She's still there.
I remember those two so fondly because they were so committed to the show.
Right.
And that made me feel like, I guess, it's from the top. The top, they're committed up top. We're committed down here.
Yeah.
It's a trickle down effect. So once I felt that and we did the show, it just went from there. And
So you leave here as a young 20-year-old. You go to seek fame and fortune in California, and the road to riches is paved sometimes with a lot of failure.
Absolutely.
How did you succeed?
Honestly, just got to keep going, no matter what. I always have this thing about myself. You'll be all right, no matter what. You'll be fine. Just keep going. Just keep going.
So that clearly had to come from your raising.
Yeah.
The people who raised you instilled that in you.
Yeah. My dad put me to work at 10. When I turned 10 years old, I was moving furniture, and there was no way
that you're going to do that for a living.
that I was going to do it for a living, but also there was no way I can give up or I can stop working. You know what I mean? Once we started a job, it was, even though I was beat down, it was hard. I was just a young kid, and I'm lifting, boxes all day, and it was such a physical job, but there was no way I can give up. and that transferred into me moving forward into my career. You know, if I start a job, there's no way I can give up. I got to keep going. And even if it's a failure, I learned something for the next round.
So did you go to acting school?
I did. Well, when I got to California. When I got to California, I started studying with a man named Aaron Spicer, who was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, acting coaches at the time. He was coaching Will Smith. He still coaches Will Smith and the Wayans and Jennifer Lopez. And
Wow.
he was an amazing guy. And I went to his class just to look at the class, and I thought it was fantastic. And I said, I'll do anything to join this class. And one day I was talking to him, and he was complaining about a guy who didn't clean up the studio. He was like, oh man, the guy, you know, you're supposed to mop the floor and clean the bathrooms. I said, hey man, can I do that? And he said, can you do it? 1 day a week, 2 hours. Absolutely. How much does it cost to go to your class? You go free. You're on scholarship. So I spent 12 years as one of his key students in his studio. And I learned so much. He gave me so much background and behind the scenes work that it just became a sort of a, you know his name and you throw it out there and the people you work with go, oh yeah, I know that guy. He's incredible.
So if you're just joining us, I'm joined by a young man, Mr. Casey Washington, who is an actor who spent 25 years out in California. Tell us some of the sitcoms, man, major sitcoms, and some of the people you've worked with.
Major sitcoms, Hot in Cleveland, Mike and Molly, Everybody Hates Chris. I did the Key and Peele pilot.
So when I looked up you on some of the, you didn't just have a bit piece where you came in and said, oh, by the way, 5 seconds and you said, and you were gone. You were actually engaged and written into these shows.
Yeah. I can tell you, here's a crazy experience. So in Hollywood, a lot of people, the thing is to audition. You audition, you audition, you audition. When I started in the business, I was a production assistant. So I started behind the scenes. I was, getting coffee, taking garbage out, running scripts to people's homes. And it just became a thing where I just worked behind the scenes to keep money in my pocket. So when I decided to quit doing behind the scenes work, I wanted to be an actor. All those connections were still there. So I started to get small parts because I knew someone. I did Everybody Hates Chris because I worked with Debbie Allen so much. When I walked in the room, Debbie was like, oh, baby. And I was like, oh, walked out of the room and I got the job because I've worked with her for so long. So it just became a who you know type of deal.
So you got to know Debbie Allen.
Debbie Allen's fantastic.
Man, I mean, just how did you wind up even getting anywhere near it? For people in this audience who don't know who the great Debbie Allen is, man, magnificent dancer, has starred in all sorts of A-list movies. How did you even? Because you would think that a person like Debbie Allen, and nothing personal, but Casey Washington, how did that happen?
Okay, so
because I'm sure there are a lot of Casey Washingtons coming up to Debbie Allen. Hey, Debbie. Hey.
So when I first came into the business, like I said, I was a production assistant, and I was a production assistant on All of Us back in the day. Remember that show with Dwayne Martin?
Oh yeah,
Lisa Ray, and Debbie was a director. Well, she still is director, and she was directing a few episodes. And I was there every day of the week because I was a production assistant. So we got to know each other, and I was just, the young, fresh kid, big eyes looking, oh man, this is Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I've always just kept it to that point, committed to that and not so much in the mix. It was just work for me. And then as we went along, I will always see Debbie, and Debbie would say, "Oh my goodness, you're always working." Yes, I'm always working. I don't. If I'm not in front of the camera, I'm behind the camera
Right.
because I got bills to pay.
Right.
And it's, what did Red Fox say? You could be a lot funnier when you with a full stomach.
Well, how is it possible? Early on, you moved to California.
Mm-hmm.
It costs a lot more to live in California than in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
How are you able to make that happen? Support from your family?
Okay, so let me preference all of this
Right.
to the absolute moment, like the beginning. I have a good friend named Shannon Bernard. Who went to high school. I didn't necessarily go to high school with him. I went to high school with his cousins, but he used to always show up at our events, football games, and stuff like that. And he would always listen to us as young kids. He
Right.
would listen to us and what we wanted to do. And I had told him I wanted to be an actor. And he said, "Oh, I got a cousin out there. She's a casting director." And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, that's great." And I ended up taking my first trip out there, and I stayed with his cousin in her place, and she put me as an extra. She's an extra caster, a
Right.
casting director. She put me in in Baby Boy.
Oh, Baby Boy, man. Oh, wow. Gotta hang on. 855-752-4842. My guest is Mr. Casey Washington. He is a renowned actor and has lived in California. And when I say renowned, man, look at some of your credits. And so you're back here in Milwaukee to do some great things, work with some young people. And I'm excited to have you on the air. 855-752-4842. You're tuned into a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.
Saying, baby, it's time to go. First the feeling's all right, then it's gone from sight. So I've taken out this time to say.
How many did you say? 6?
I didn't make it sure, playing by the rules. I come apart, baby,
All right, welcome back to a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752 4842, 855-752-4842. My guest is Mr. Casey Washington, a nationally renowned actor from the city of Milwaukee who's kind of made his way after 25 years. And I just look at, man, some of the people you've been around and you've worked with.
Mm-hmm.
It really is kind of, you know, to a guy that comes from Milwaukee and travels and follows his dream, and it becomes a reality, man. You know, again, the road, the path is paved with people who felt the same way and did not succeed. So it has a lot to do with your stick-to-itiveness and clearly your talent. That can't be so that people recognize your talent immediately, or did your talent improve through the classes?
I would say it recognized immediately. I would give you a story about Cedric when I was
Cedric the Entertainer.
Cedric the Entertainer. I was a production assistant at the time on a show called Cedric the Entertainer Presents. It was the sketch show back in the day.
Right.
And I was an office PA, but I was always hustling. I had to deliver scripts throughout the night and, you know, across the city.
Right.
So it was a lot of times I would pull up to Cedric's house and Cedric be on his way to work, on his way to set. And one time Cedric came out of the house and said, "Hey, listen, if it takes you this long to drop the script off, just leave it at work. I'll get it when I get to work." Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. That gives me one less stop. Right. And then when I get to work one day, I come in his office and I drop the script off, and Cedric says, "I see you hustling, young gunner." And I left the office, but I was like, oh, so he knows that I work really hard.
Right.
Just as a production assistant, whatever they need, it's always, I'm gunning, I'm running and gunning. So from that point, I became like Cedric's stand-in.
Really?
So when Cedric
well,
would have
you kind of, you can got some,
listen, it
physically and the look,
it goes by, it's still kind of who you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was just always in the right place at the right time, especially when it came to Cedric, because Cedric's always working.
Right.
Always working. You never catch a moment where Cedric's, if he's not on doing a television show, he's on the stage. So I kept that in mind. As long as I'm hustling or working hard, I'll always find my space in that, next to someone who's doing the same thing.
Especially someone who succeeded.
I mean,
yeah,
many times over.
Yeah.
And then when I got to acting class, that was kind of a coach. My coach saw that I was
not intimidated.
Not intimidated, exactly. It was more like, all right, well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna stay in class, or are you just gonna be a student because you want to be a student? I was like, nah, man, I want to work. I want to work. Teach me to act. Teach me how to act, and I find work, and that's what happened.
So look, man, I got an opportunity to be in this this movie called Birds of a Feather,
right?
And it's not released yet, but man, I didn't have any idea. Never done anything, right?
Right.
I had the people on the show, on my radio show, and they were looking for a person. They couldn't find a person to fit, and out of the clear blue, they called me up and said, "Hey, you're the guy," right? And so I hadn't. Look, man, I'm a 70-year-old guy. I'm not thinking of getting into anything new. But I went to the rehearsals, and after 12-hour days, I said, "I want to do this." Man, because it was the repetitiveness
Yes.
of it. People
Yeah.
people don't see that aspect of it. It's hard work.
Mm-hmm. Most people, when people watch TV, they see 30 minutes, an hour, 60 minutes.
Right.
They see that, but they don't know it took us some shows. You get an hour show. A lot of those shows shoot 6 days a week for an hour. And you see an hour of those 6 days.
Yeah, and during the day, you're not talking about 1 hour.
No, we're pulling 12, 13.
Yeah.
The longest I've ever sat on a set was 18 hours.
Man, I couldn't. All I said was, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
After it was over, I was relieved, and just the repetitiveness of it.
Right.
Same scene over
Over.
and over and over and over. And I'm like, hey, I mean, just one little slip up
Mm-hmm.
from any of us. Got to do it again. Got to do it again. People are looking for perfection, right?
They're looking for perfection, but there's so many components. You want to make sure that everything's firing at the same time. The actors are on their job, the camera guy's on his job,
Sound people.
the sound people are on their job. So sometimes, you get people who are very in tune, the director who's very in tune to all those different levels, and to say, well, we need to do this again because, the word didn't come out correctly at the end of your sentence.
All right, 855-752-4842 is the number. My guest is Mr. Casey Washington, a nationally renowned actor. 855-752-4842 on a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.
This I know, baby. Ain't gonna let it sweat me, baby.
Chaka 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 Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, got the feel for you. Chaka Khan, what you tell me what you wanna do? Do you feel for me the way I feel for you? Chaka Khan, let me tell you what I wanna do. I wanna love you, wanna hug you, wanna squeeze you too. And let me take it in my arms, let me feel you with my charm, Chaka. Cause you know that I'm the one to keep you warm, Chaka. I make it more than just a physical
song
dream.
never
Let me
get
rock
old.
it, Chaka, cause you make me wanna scream. Let me rock it, rock it.
We need more harmonicas.
All right. Welcome back to Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. If you're just joining us, I'm joined by Mr. Casey Washington, a very successful actor who's acted in some great shows. You've been in movies?
Baby Boy is probably the
Oh, well,
only.
Baby Boy, man.
Yeah.
You know, one of my all-time favorite movies,
Nice,
man.
nice.
Baby Boy. 855-752-4842. You've decided to move. You're moving kind of back this way.
Yeah.
After all that success in L.A., man, why would you want to come back home?
You know, to be honest, a lot of Hollywood has changed, and do I want to be along that ride? Not necessarily.
It changed in what instance?
It's just not like what I grew up in. When I grew up, it was a lot of, I would say, politics changed a lot of it, and that's not my strong suit.
Right.
I'm more or less.
You're not a politrickster.
No, I'm more or less. I love what I do.
Right.
I'm passionate about what I do. I love being creative, and those things aren't in my wheelhouse.
So so there was always this idea that you had to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you had talent, you had to play the game. How much of that was real?
Most of it. A lot of it is you got to play the game, and that's not just not in Hollywood. I mean, it goes across the board. A lot of times you have to play the game, and that's not my strong suit. My strong suit is creativity, being creative, and being able to make TV and movies and flush out ideas, and that's my strong suit, and that's where I stay.
So creating movies
Mm-hmm.
is more than a notion.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly it takes a great idea, but making the great idea come into fruition, it takes money.
Yeah, it takes money, but you can also do things on the free. Especially now, since everybody has a cell phone, you can, these cameras shoot as good as a $20,000 camera, as long as it's not long form.
Right.
But there's a lot of things on the back end of like post-production, being able to know how to edit and those types of things. So having money to make a movie is great if you can get your hands on it. But if you can't, then, find a way to work bare bones.
So did you learn the production part of it and all those intertwined parts of what makes these things go on your own?
Yeah. I did a show back in the day called Being Eddie Black. And it was a show, it was kind of like, it was about a young brother who dropped out of college, and he was working in the mailroom at a ad agency. And we thought it was going to be a go. We had meetings with Comedy Central. This is back in the day when Russell Simmons was doing Baby Fat. Right. And, so we had a vehicle to go, and then it just went array up top. You know what I mean? So there's issues up top. So I didn't get paid for that show. The only thing I got was a copy of Final Cut Pro. So I just committed to learning how to use the program. And from there, it just moved on to cameras, and I just invested the whole, just learning how to produce and learning how to direct and learning how to make what I enjoyed being in. I learned how to make it. So I can make a television show. I can make a movie exactly the way you see it on television or at the theater because I've taught myself the business side of it.
So with the new technology,
Mhm.
since the 25 years that you were engaged,
Mhm.
clearly when you walked into it, technology was, not what it is now.
Right.
And certainly people had, um, more archaic kinds of things. With this new technology, it's certainly made doing this a lot easier,
Oh,
right?
my goodness, man.
And eliminated a lot of people.
Yes, it did, and it's going to eliminate more
Right.
in the future. But I think I think you learn how to master the technology as it grows because it's not going to stop. It's just going to get better and better. Like now, before you can edit a video and it would take you, weeks or a month, and now with AI, you could just plug it in AI and AI would do it in seconds. It's still you still don't have the touch. I'm a friend of mine when Tesla came out and everybody was, oh my God, Tesla's such a great car, an electric car. He said something that made total sense. He says, I prefer my Porsche. I said, well, why? Tesla's a cool car. He says,
Right.
no, Teslas have no soul. I said, hey. He says, when I jump in my Porsche, I can feel the car. I can feel the car animate. It's like the car's alive.
Right, right.
And that's the same thing when it comes to technology and cutting movies and adding that element into this into the technology side of Hollywood. You lose that soul if there's not somebody there operating.
So you've made a decision to come back to Milwaukee and to do some creating and yourself. Let's talk a little bit about what the plans are, because this is not Hollywood.
It's not, but Hollywood has also kind of opened up because now before when I went to Hollywood, it was you come to Hollywood and you make it there. Now with technology, people are making it in their living rooms. So you see a lot of studios are popping up over the United States, and you got towards Tyler Perry, the creator of the CEO of what's his name? Can't think of his name, but the CEO of Chick-fil-A. They just opened a studio in Atlanta. There's another studio opening up in
Well, the comedian, what's the guy's name? He's a little short guy, but he's been in the
Cat
book.
Williams.
Cat Williams
Cat
is
Williams,
just
yeah.
opening up a
Just
studio.
opening up a studio. So
Yeah.
what that means is that now there's so much talent, you can find it anywhere. Now the best place for the talent to get there might be a shorter distance than what it used to be for people to have to fly out to West Coast and to learn how to make their dream come true. So now, since there's so much more access, there's so much more roadway for people to go to outside of Los Angeles, you see a lot more studios popping up. So the big goal for Milwaukee is to be one of those places where we do house some content and we do house a place for people to show their talents. And I drive down the street and I see all of these empty buildings and I say, oh man, that's great studio space.
Right.
Oh, we got all these car lots. How come there's not a central place for every car lot to come shoot their commercials? There should be. Why not? They would put a lot of people to work.
So if you're just joining us, my guest is Mr. Casey Washington, a nationally renowned actor who's appeared in some great sitcoms, all-time great sitcoms, and he's come back home to Milwaukee. Let me ask you: there are people, grandparents listening right now who have grandchildren, and they see something in them, and what we would like for you to pursue. I think she can be an actor. I think he can be an actor, and so sometimes people get snookered by people who say, "I can turn your child into a star." Let's talk a little bit about that. Am I off base?
No, no. Listen, I visited one before I moved to California, which was John Robert Powers. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you remember
I remember John Robert Powell.
John Robert Powers, and
Never did much of it. People. I don't know if people came out of there or not.
Well, the idea with John Robert Powers was that you go in and you audition, and then they say that you're great, and then they offer you pay them a certain amount of money, and then they put you in, I guess, in a commercial or whatever. Don't ever pay anybody to make you a star. You're a star or you're not. Don't pay anybody to make you a star. That's kind of reverse of what you're doing. You're going to be a star if you show up in the right place. If I'm doing a commercial for Toyota, I'm not going to say you need to pay me to be in my commercial. I'm going to say that's the guy I want. He's got the gray, he has the look, he has everything that I want. Let's put him in the commercial. And then we'll pay him.
Oh, so that's kind of how that works. It's not about the pedigree.
Mm-mm. You're gonna pay schools like that, John Robert Powers. You're gonna pay to go to the place. I say never pay to play in that industry, especially when you have a talent. And if you have a great talent, you shouldn't be paying to play.
855-752-4842 is the number. Let's go to Jim from Brookfield. Good morning to you, Jim. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
I say good morning, Casey. Good morning, Earl. I'm just
Good
curious, Casey, when in your interactions with the celebs and whatnot out west or wherever, New York, California, do you get any reaction or feedback when it's apparent you're from, or you're told you're from the Midwest, specifically Milwaukee? I mean, is there any feedback like, oh, Milwaukee beer or the Brewers or anything? I mean, what if any type of feedback do you get?
Or Laverne and Shirley.
It's interesting. That's a great question. Because every time I say Milwaukee, I get a few answers. Number one, they say, oh, well, I didn't know black people was in Milwaukee. I said, oh, okay. The other is they love this place. If they visited Milwaukee, they love it. They love the culture. They love the beer. They love the food. I get that response a lot. And they definitely put it on there. I will go back to Milwaukee and hang out if I could.
What do you say, man? A dream that a person has, and they want to be an actor like you did, only they don't have the chops. Do you dash their dreams and hopes, or do you, how do you handle that? There's some people who say I can sing, and then you hear them sing, and you.
Yeah, here's one thing. I will never do.
Dash somebody's hopes.
Never. Because you never know. It's just, how are you going to do it is always the question. How are you going to do it? You can't, if you're going to commit to it, don't give up. And that's the hard part, because you're going to get a lot of people that's going to dash your dreams and tell you can't do it, or maybe you should try something different. I had a guy, when I started, a guy told me, hey, man, just quit that right now, man. Get yourself a 40-hour week job, get you a pension, and just call it a day. And I took offense to that. Who you talking to, brother?
Right.
You can't. No, you should always want to encourage, no matter what your dream is.
Well, number one, nobody knows what's inside of another person. You don't know the drive. You don't know what's been placed there. 855-752-4842. My guest again is Mr. Casey Washington, renowned actor. You're tuned into a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show.
Shaka Khan, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Shaka Khan, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, 'cause I feel for you. Feel for you.
All right, welcome back to the last few minutes of a Motown Monday on the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. You know, man, Mr. Casey Washington, a nationally renowned actor, it's so good to have this kind of conversation, man, because I'm usually here every day, Monday through Friday, in dealing with politics
Oh,
and politricksters.
man.
And the bulk of my conversation is always about politics.
Right.
So it's refreshing to be able to have a dialogue and a conversation other than that. Because sometimes, you know, we get so caught up in the politics
Mm-hmm.
that we forget that there's another world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so how, you know, what are your plans? You say you want to do these things?
So far, I'm working with James Madison High School. We're working on a 6-week filmmaker course. That's I'm assuming it will take place this summer. We're working the kinks out right now, but a lot of it's helping Madison get on that front of just bringing kids, because who knows, they may not know that
could be the next Casey Washington,
or the next Scorsese,
yeah,
or the next Denzel, or you know what I mean. They have no idea. So that it's like, for me, it was presented, I bit, and here I am.
You know, you never know, and I said this off the air, and I repeat it because it bears repeating. People leave this earth never realizing they have talent.
Right.
I think it's the biggest waste when people are born and live their lives, and then their lives, the evil consequences of time overtake them,
Mm-hmm.
and they never knew they had talent.
Yeah.
But everybody's got talent,
Everybody.
right? Okay, and so I when I'm talking with kids, it's always about, you have talent.
Mm-hmm.
You have talent. What does it cost to tell people that? I don't know why we don't make that
Mandatory.
Yeah, mandatory.
Mandatory. Like, because most of us, we're all just guessing. We're all just guessing as we go along. And kids especially, you know, they're the most bright-eyed. They're just guessing like, okay. If you can instill something for that quick second, I promise you it'll be worth all to see a kid on the other side of them finding out what their dream is, and them actually going out to accomplish it. It's just like you've done it yourself.
Is there something you can see in a young person, very young ages? I know I can see things in children, and you say, wow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's nobody to direct that wow, that talent you saw in that child at a young age, it's all wasted.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of us being adults. We have to take initiative. You know, kid's gonna be a kid. We have to take, especially if we see it. If we see it, I feel like it's part of my responsibility to, if I can't do it, at least I tried.
You know, it's the luck of the draw.
Mm-hmm.
Kids don't pick their parents.
Right.
And so that's where the society has a responsibility and a role.
What did I say? It takes a village?
It takes a village. So you see something in a child that the parent doesn't.
Right.
Maybe the parent is overburdened and struggling day to day to try to make ends meet and can't see that. But you only get one shot in this life, right? For the most part, you only get one shot. And if somebody's not there to help you during that time, you know, I tell you something, man, as great an actor as you are, and I saw your stuff, you're really good.
Thank you, man.
There's some folk walking around on the street.
Oh, that will bury me.
I know. I'm just.
Hey, listen, I have no shame. They will bury me, and just with raw talent. right?
But they don't work as hard.
But
Did not
You
go
know,
outwork you, right?
but they won't outwork me. But kudos to them, because if I see it, I'm able to make a movie to show for them to show that talent. Hey, you're a monster in front of the screen, in front of the camera. You're
Yeah.
incredible.
You know, man, that thing that you're gonna be doing over at John Marsh at James Madison, I'll be hanging out. I'll be over there, man. 'Cause
Okay.
I used to work at James Madison.
Oh, did you?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, did I?
I worked over James Madison. Not during your time, but
Okay.
probably 10 years ago. I was over there for several years,
Okay.
and really got to see some people and got to see a whole lot of things. Look, listen, you know, that's it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
But
man,
listen,
that's
man,
cool.
we're gonna bring you back
Thank you. I'll be back.
because I really enjoyed our dialogue.
Yes.
So we're
Yes,
gonna do
sir.
this again. Thank everybody who made the show go. Up next, Jane Madnair and Greg Bott. Madnair on air. Calvin, thank you. I'll be back on tomorrow. Enjoy the day.